What's up, guys? I was trying some fun things with Zane, and he gave me the thumbs up with that one. So I'm happy that Canva is a cool setup, and you can do some really impressive things all in one area. And I think one thing, Zane, that you and I've talked about before with just trying things, like getting them out there the first time, really leads into our current conversation of acquiring your first customers. Like how do you get that first customer there, and how do you really assess it? And I know you had a really good conversation with one of our mutual buddies in Surge from Locomate, talking about this type of conversation of how do you get from thought, idea, beta to actually having a paying customer. Anyway,
Yeah.
everybody, welcome to the RPH Ally Technology Show, Healthcare Tech Show with the Digital Thoughts man himself, Zane.
Hey guys, how's everyone doing? His advice was just pray and hope that everything worked. No, I'm kidding. No, I mean, it was a really interesting conversation. I think the podcast came out 2 weeks ago, and he was talking about his journey about getting his first customers. And he said something really, I mean, when you hear it, you're like, oh, of course. But when you're in the process, you don't think like this because you're just trying to survive, honestly. But he was talking about how you want your first customers to be your partners that are going to help you develop moving forward. And I don't remember exactly his wording, but I'm just kind of paraphrasing a little bit. But he's like, you need to find somebody that's okay with like the 25% that you have right now, and that doesn't lead itself to like bigger systems and things like that, because they're going to constantly want to add more, make you want to do more. And the reason he said that sometimes those are not the best first customers is because you're going to get bogged down regardless. Your product is going to come out late. You're going to be just in this development cycle constantly. So it's better to find people that are okay with what you have right now, get it out there, get some beta testing done, make sure it's working. And then from there, not only do you have somebody that that trusted you and wanted to use your product, and then you also have actual data that you can use to go to those bigger systems and let them know, be like, hey, we got this system on, we got this data from this product. What do you guys think? And then they might be like, hey, that makes sense, right? So and I think that's a great approach, and that's the way they approached it as well. They went out just, if they said, hey, we want this and this, they said, okay, we'll come back to you guys. They're not like, hey, you're dead to us. Like, hey, we'll just come back to you guys when we do have that built in, right? They took their advice and they said, okay, when we have X, Y, and Z built, then we're going to approach, person A.
I think it's so smart. And I mean, it's all about, maybe it's used too often in development spaces and in just business in general or sales, but it's all about one pain point. Can you address one pain point for that first group of clients? Like everybody has dreams when they're first kind of launching new technology, or even when you're adopting new technology, you're thinking like, I want it to solve everything in the world that's ever gone wrong. It's just not possible. Like you said, the sprints get overwhelming. The needs get almost contradictory with like what you're needing from different customers and clientele. And so I think that, Surge's advice there, and really to acquire your first customer, you have to be able to do exactly that. Analyze where are the pain points, who is a group you can trust to be able to grow with you, and address just that one that's meaningful to them. Any pain points that you've felt like over the years, Zane, that you've had a technology company that you worked with in the oncology space, or where you're at now in the PM space, that has been on either side of that equation? Like they've said they're going to do these things and flopped, or they came in and said, this is all we can do right now, and they delivered on that, and then they could grow?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I mean, I can't name names, but unfortunately, I've dealt with more of the former rather than the latter. Because I mean, I wasn't involved in those decisions when I worked in the hospital systems. So I mean, there was one company, pretty large company, that had a pretty well fleshed out product. Well, that's what they made it seem like. And when it got to us, by the time it was all this contracts were signed and everything, and we were told the workflow, we were like, this is ridiculous. This is not helping. It's supposed to, increase accuracy or, increase speed, but it was doing the exact opposite. One thing you find out in healthcare, and probably a lot of different industries, is when a solution is put out there, we, not saying that everyone wants everything quickly, and especially in pharmacy, we're the last link in the chain, and we are pressured to do things faster than sometimes we would like.
Yeah.
So we, sometimes we will cut corners, not like in a safety standpoint, but like in the sense of like, okay, this is not affecting the patient. We will work on this on the back end, right? It's mostly
Right.
like, internal things.
You got to check 5,000 boxes a day. You're just going to check 2,000 of them, and
Yeah,
then do those later so you can do what's right for the patient. Yeah.
basically. So that's what was happening with the system is we were working around our internal processes, and it was not working the way it was being said it was going to work. So unfortunately, that is kind of the I mean, I don't know. You probably had the similar situations with your career, and that's one of the reasons why, like, and I kind of talk about this is why I want to get into tech is because I think we need people like us, people that have actually been in the front line, to be like, hey, this is not going to work because of this, but you have a great idea, but why don't you look at it this way, and then it will work, and you will make everyone happy. So yeah, I'm trying to think of anyone that had a small product that delivered, and I unfortunately can't think of one because again, I worked at a bigger hospital system, and those hospital systems are usually not the best clients for really small startups.
Yeah.
um A, because they're going to want everything in the moon, to be given to them, and then B, the sales cycle is might just bury you
Yeah.
in general.
It does. I mean, I think you just mentioned something with your first customer, like sometimes that is one piece, that sales cycle, like looking and saying, I'm going to go after this giant, to be my first customer. That in general could burn up your runway rather
Mhm.
quickly. So you don't have the assets to be able to actually deliver. The other piece you mentioned that I love is sometimes we focus so much on the DM, right? The decision maker. Like they're the ones that we have to sell to get to that first like customer experience. And they're the ones that allow like the gatekeeping scenario to be opened. But then what ends up happening, you work with the actual boots on the ground human beings that are doing the work, that are the professionals there inside the trenches. You didn't consult them, you didn't work with them, you didn't talk to their pain points. And I feel like that's another important part of acquiring your first customer is knowing who they actually are, not just
Yeah.
knowing who's writing the check, but knowing who's going to use the solution and that it's valuable in answering that one pain point for them and not causing additional, headaches. But I've seen that, like you were saying, Zane. There's one company. It was actually like a vial solution, like a vial mixing solution.
Mhm.
Um, they interestingly they withdrew their product because they had some issues with it, which was funny because it was fantastic. Like our facility used it. We used it for mixing things right on the floor for emergency situations, et cetera, or immediate use situations. And it was one of those non-tech but development pieces that I thought, this is great. Like it just works so seamlessly and so easy, for us to be able to do it. Unfortunately, they they lost a number of customers because of some of their like back end validations of using it, like actually vetting out the product in real life situations so they could make sure they weren't going to encounter some of these, issues. And I think that's another important piece is it's great if you acquire the first one, but if you leave a bad taste in their mouth
Yeah.
and you don't wow them, getting the next customer can be rough.
Yeah, and there's this guy called Alex Hermosi.
Yeah.
He is, yeah. So he said he's
You
like,
know what? You guys have a resemblance. You and the Hermosi family
yeah,
right there.
I just, make me a little taller, maybe drop like maybe a couple 100 pounds, and then I'll be there. Yeah.
But his muscles aren't as big as yours, so that's all that matters,
Yeah,
right?
a layer of fat on top of them really helps quite a bit. But no, all kidding aside. But he said that hey, when when you he's like focus on one avatar or one persona or one like niche, make that as best as you can. Once you stop getting customer complaints, is when you can start moving forward. And he's like, then you can move to a different niche or a different product or different something else. But he's like, until you get to a point where because you're constantly evolving the product to the point where it's so good that people are like, wow, this is amazing. They've thought of everything, right? But like what happens is you just kind of rush through it. Like you got your first couple of people, like, yay. And you're so focused on getting the next client, the next sale, that you sometimes forget about, okay, did we flesh out everything? Did we have everything? I mean, and and I've been there where you need money, right? You need to pay your staff, you need to pay everyone. You have all this other stresses on you. So it's much easier said than done.
Yeah.
And even big companies are not really good at this. So to say that startups will be, and that's why, I mean, but that's what separates like the unicorns from just, something that will be around for a couple of years, right?
Yeah. That unicorn in my mind is just, it's so, you watch The Office at all, Zane?
I love
You an
that.
Office fan? Okay, good.
Yep.
I remember you and I were brothers on that one. There's one that there's a unicorn character that pierces the sky like that Dwight is selling. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
That is what I now think of as unicorns. Like there's so many VC unicorns, like they're just so backed by just fake money that now they got to that status and then they plummeted. We've had a ton of those kind of pop up. And the interesting things are what you just brought up there, what Hermosi brings up is really fleshing out that product. I think, but the opposite can happen, right? You and I have both seen it, that you can have a company that's like, it's not good enough. Like this has to be better. This piece of branding needs to be different. The way we've set up the art on it has to vary. And they're not able to just focus back on what we started with of having that one pain point, to be able
Yeah.
to just answer that one question, and you don't have to do everything, under the sun.
Yeah.
Well, cool, buddy. Well, just like always, we always ran up right on the brink of time. Any more things on acquiring your first customer you want to drop some knowledge nuggets to everybody, and then tell them about our pitch competition coming up?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think acquiring your first customer is an art, and you just kind of have to. I think one important thing is finding a champion inside of inside of that organization that'll champion you and your product, and they have to be high enough to where they have some pull, but not that high to where they're never just going to look at you. So I think that's another thing, right? Is reaching out to people that are right at the cusp of decision making, like director level or things like that. So that's just one thing that I've noticed as well. In terms of pitch competition, yeah, no, we are taking entries for startups that are healthcare, that are founded by healthcare people. You can be a clinician, nurse, whatever you want. Somebody who just does admin at a hospital. We just want people that have worked in the hospital setting to be founders, because we want to breed innovation. And that's one other thing we can talk about is how do you set up innovation inside your own hospital system. We've all seen like what doesn't work, but maybe you can workshop some things that can work. But yeah, no, the link to the form will be in the comments below. And yeah, we would love to see what you guys come up with.
For sure. No, I'm really excited about it. If you guys want to get more on these types of topics, you join us at that pitch competition, which is wonderful. Make sure you follow all of the stuff that Zane is doing on Digital Thoughts and his channel inside of RPH Ally. And let's get this kind of moving in that direction. The momentum of healthcare entering the technology space. I'm feeling it, so we can do it. All right. Thanks so much for joining us today, everybody.
Bye, guys.